Is Vietnam safe? Scams and safety tips for first-time visitors. Welcome to Real Talk Vietnam. If you are planning your first trip to Vietnam, one question probably comes up again and again. Is Vietnam safe? And the honest answer is, yes. Vietnam is generally safe for most tourists. But that does not mean you should be careless. Vietnam is not a war zone. It is not a place where most visitors need to walk around afraid. Many first-time travelers are surprised by how friendly, welcoming, and normal daily life feels once they arrive. But Vietnam is also busy, crowded, fast-moving, and sometimes confusing. And for first-time visitors, the biggest problems are usually not violent crime. The biggest problems are petty theft, phone snatching, taxi confusion, overcharging, rush tours, traffic, and simple mistakes that happen when you are tired, distracted, or too trusting. So, in this video, I'm going to give you a realistic safety guide for Vietnam. No fear-mongering, no fake horror stories, no pretending everything is perfect, just practical advice so you can enjoy Vietnam with more confidence. Let's start with the big picture. The U.S. Travel Advisory currently lists Vietnam at Level 1, which means exercise normal precautions. That is the lowest advisory level. Canada gives a more cautious warning, telling travelers to exercise a high degree of caution because petty crime can happen, especially in larger cities and tourist areas. So, what does that mean in real life? It means Vietnam is generally safe, but you should still travel with common sense. Think of it like visiting any busy international destination. You do not need to be scared, but you do need to pay attention. The most common safety issue for tourists in Vietnam is petty theft. This can include pickpocketing, bag snatching, phone snatching, or someone distracting you while another person takes something. This is more likely in crowded places such as markets, walking streets, tourist attractions, transportation hubs, nightlife areas, and busy sidewalks. Here is the real talk. Your phone is probably the item you need to protect the most. A lot of tourists walk around with their phone in one hand, close to the street, looking at maps, filming traffic, or checking messages. That is convenient, but it also makes the phone easy to grab. In busy areas, hold your phone with both hands when possible. Stand away from the street when checking maps, and do not leave your phone sitting on the edge of a table at an outdoor cafe. If you are walking near traffic, keep your phone on the side, away from the road. Also, use a crossbody bag or a secure day pack. Do not walk around with a loose shoulder bag hanging toward the street. Keep your passport in your hotel's safe or another secure place when you do not need it. Carry a photocopy and a digital copy of your passport and visa. Now let's talk about money. Vietnam is still a cash-heavy country in many places, especially for street food, markets, small shops, tips, and local services. But do not carry all your cash in one place. Keep small notes in an easy-to-reach pocket for daily spending, and keep backup cash somewhere more secure. When withdrawing money from an ATM, use machines in banks, malls, hotels, or well-lit areas. Avoid counting a large amount of cash openly on the street. Also, take your time with Vietnamese dong. The zeros can confuse first-time visitors. You do not need to panic when paying. Count slowly, check the bill, and make sure you understand the amount. Now, scams. The word scam gets used a lot online, but not every uncomfortable situation is a scam. Sometimes it is a misunderstanding. Sometimes it is a language problem. Sometimes you simply did not ask the price first. But there are a few situations where first-time visitors should be careful. Number 1. Taxis. In major cities, many tourists use Grab or reputable taxi companies because the price is clearer and the route is easier to follow. If you take a taxi from the street, make sure it is an official taxi, check the meter, and be careful with drivers who approach you aggressively at airports or tourist areas. If you booked an airport pickup, confirm the driver's name, phone number, and license plate before you travel. Do not get into a random car just because someone is holding a sign or says your hotel name. Number 2. Motorbike taxis. Vietnam has motorbike taxis, but for first-time visitors, they can be risky. Traffic can feel chaotic. Helmets may not be good quality, and if you are not used to riding in Vietnam, the experience can be stressful. On your first day, use a car instead of a motorbike ride. Give yourself time to understand the traffic before choosing anything riskier. Number 3. Overcharging. This can happen with street food, markets, cyclo rides, souvenirs, laundry, taxis, or small services. The easiest prevention is simple. Ask the price first. Before you eat, before you ride, before you buy, before you agree, ask. If the price is unclear, politely walk away. Do not argue loudly in public. In Vietnam, raising your voice usually makes the situation worse. Stay calm, smile, repeat the price, use a translation app if needed, and decide whether it is worth your energy. Number 4. Cheap tours. Cheap does not always mean bad. Vietnam has many affordable tours that are good value. But suspiciously cheap tours can mean overcrowded buses, rushed schedules, low-quality food, poor safety standards, or unexpected extra fees. Read recent reviews. Look for specific comments about timing, communication, safety, food, pickup, and whether the tour delivered what it promised. For boat trips, especially in places like Ha Long Bay or the Mekong Delta, choose reputable operators and avoid boats that look overloaded or poorly maintained. Number 5. Fake friendliness in tourist-heavy areas. Vietnamese people are often genuinely friendly. Many locals are helpful and kind. But in very touristy areas, not every friendly approach is innocent. If a stranger is pushing you toward a taxi, a shop, a massage place, a bar, a tour, or a special deal, slow down. You do not need to be rude. Just say, "No thank you," and keep walking. Now let's talk about traffic. Because for many first-time visitors, traffic is the most stressful part of Vietnam. In Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, motorbikes are everywhere. They may come from directions you do not expect. Some may drive on sidewalks, around corners, or against the flow of traffic. Crossing the street can feel impossible at first. Here is the basic rule. Move slowly, predictably, and do not suddenly run. Drivers are reading your movement. If you sprint, stop suddenly, or panic, you become harder to predict. When available, use pedestrian bridges, traffic lights, or crosswalks. But even at crosswalks, look both ways carefully. And if you are nervous, cross with locals. Do not rent a motorbike just because it looks fun on YouTube. Unless you are properly licensed, insured, experienced, and comfortable with local traffic, renting a motorbike in Vietnam can create serious risk. An accident can ruin your trip. It can also create legal, medical, and insurance problems. Now, what about walking at night? In most central tourist areas, walking at night can feel normal, especially in places like Hanoi Old Quarter, Central Da Nang, Hoi an Ancient Town, or District 1-inch Ho Chi Minh City. But you still need common sense. Avoid empty alleys late at night. Avoid walking alone when drunk. Do not follow strangers to unknown bars or private locations. Keep your phone and bag secure. If you are tired, use a trusted ride-hailing app or ask your hotel to arrange transportation. Nightlife areas can be fun, but they are also places where people drop their guard. Watch your drink. Do not accept unknown drinks, cigarettes, balloons, or substances from strangers. Recreational drugs in Vietnam are dangerous and illegal, and the legal consequences can be extremely serious. Now let's talk about women travelers and solo travelers. Many women travel safely in Vietnam, including solo travelers, but that does not mean every situation is risk-free. Choose accommodation with strong recent reviews. Tell someone where you are going. Avoid isolated areas late at night. Use trusted transportation. Be careful with strangers who become too friendly too quickly. If a situation feels wrong, leave early. You do not owe anyone politeness at the cost of your safety. Now let's talk about hotels and accommodation. Before booking, read recent reviews carefully. Do not only look at the rating. Read what people actually say about location, noise, cleanliness, security, staff, construction, and check-in problems. When you check in, Hotels in Vietnam may ask to see your passport because accommodation registration is part of local requirements. That is normal. But you should still understand how your passport is being handled. If possible, ask whether they only need to scan or copy it, rather than keeping it. Use the room safe if available, or keep your important documents in a secure pouch. Now, what should you do if something goes wrong? First, stay calm. If your phone, wallet, or bag is stolen, do not chase someone into traffic. Your safety is more important than the item. Report the incident to local police if you need a report for insurance or passport replacement. If your passport is lost or stolen, contact your embassy or consulate as soon as possible. Keep digital copies of important documents before the trip: passport, visa, travel insurance, hotel booking, emergency contacts, and flight details. Also, have travel insurance that covers medical care, theft, trip disruption, and emergency support. Now let's talk about health and food safety briefly. Vietnamese food is amazing, and street food is one of the best parts of the trip, but choose places wisely. A busy stall with high turnover is usually a good sign. Freshly cooked food is better than food sitting out for a long time. Drink bottled water. Be cautious with ice in rural areas if you are unsure. Bring basic medicine for stomach issues, allergies, pain relief, and rehydration. If you have a serious allergy, carry a translated allergy note. Now let's put this together into a simple first-time visitor safety checklist. 1. Keep your phone away from the street side. 2. Use a crossbody bag or secure day pack. 3. Ask prices before agreeing. 4. Use Grab, trusted ride apps, or reputable taxis. 5. Avoid renting a motorbike unless you are experienced, licensed, and insured. 6. Read recent reviews before booking tours and hotels. 7. Do not carry all your cash in one place. 8. Stay calm in disagreements. 9. Avoid unknown drugs, drinks, and risky nightlife situations. 10. Keep digital copies of your passport, visa, insurance, and bookings. So, is Vietnam safe? For most first-time visitors, yes. But the safest travelers are not the most fearful travelers. They are the most aware. Vietnam is busy. Vietnam is exciting. Vietnam can feel chaotic at first, but once you understand the rhythm, it becomes much easier. Stay alert, not afraid. Protect your phone. Choose transportation carefully. Slow down when something feels confusing. And do not let a few online horror stories define the whole country. Vietnam can be an incredible first trip if you prepare well. That is what Real Talk Vietnam is here for. Honest Vietnam travel advice before you go. If this video helped you, subscribe to Real Talk Vietnam for more first-time visitor guides. In the next videos, we'll cover airport arrival, money and apps, realistic itineraries, and Vietnamese food for beginners. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Real Talk Vietnam guide.